Our first speaker is Yash, and he wears several hats actually, because I know him under several different hats. But tonight's hat is he's the founder and creator of a new hummus product, and he's created it and he's bottled it, jarred it, and now it's available in stores all over Vancouver. So let's welcome Yash.
Hi everybody. Thanks for being here. Richard, thank you for having me. My name is Yash. My full name is Yashar Nijati, if you want to Google me. My Twitter handle is Yummus Organics, so if you're tweeting, please tag that. So as Richard said, I'm the founder and sole operator, owner, everything at Yummus. Yummus is a small hummus production company. We make hummus out of exceptional ingredients. We package them into little glass jars and they're sold in stores in Vancouver and also on spud.ca. So we're going to go through a journey, an innovation journey, and we're going to go through 3 layers of a hummus dip. The first layer is going to be a classic, second layer is going to be the Moroccan spice, and the third layer is going to be the smoked. And those are all the 3 flavors that I have, but they're also the 3 stages of innovation that the company's been through since we started. Not too long ago, but when some company starts, innovation moves pretty quickly, and actually thinking about what I'm going to say tonight helped me identify a lot of those points. So starting with the classic, or the story of how we started, it's actually started with a deadline, and a deadline in a lot of people's mind is a kind of a negative thing. You know, you've got 2 words, deadline. Once you reach it, you're dead. That's it. But for me, it was a positive thing because it was a personal set deadline, and I set a deadline for myself of 12 months, going back to about summer of 2012, and I said I got 12 months to start something substantial here in Vancouver, or else I got to move out. So I'm still here, for better or for worse. But so we managed to do that. But it started with a classic story of having a comfortable but not satisfactory job that didn't fulfill everything. So that's a classic story of that. And setting that deadline of having to leave that job and create my own thing. So I worked with what I had, which was a degree, but I didn't want to pursue that. But I had a passion for food, and I had a good network. So I said, let's start working with that and see where that takes me. So it started with doing some secret suppers out of my home and building that network. And also, I had a golden hummus recipe, as I like to call it, and I started giving that out to friends. And one day, while working at Bell on their dime, I was having lunch at Harvest, enjoying my bowl of ramen, and I happened to look around and I see all these great local food products there, and that was when I decided to take a leap. And I turned to Andrea, who's the chef owner there, and at that time she still worked there, and I said, hey, I make a great hummus. And I sell it to my friends. I didn't really sell it to my friends, I gave it to my friends. Are you interested in a sample? She said, well, do you produce it out of a commercial kitchen? I said, well, yes. I did not produce it out of a commercial kitchen, but decided to take the leap. And so she said, yeah, bring me a sample. I'm like, okay, well, so kind of the first stage of innovation there is giving out samples without actually having a product. Call it innovation, call it being a little crazy, but that's what it was. So after I did that, I went home and asked a couple friends who owned a restaurant if I could make some hummus while they're closed, and they said yes, and packaged it up and hand drew a label and brought it to Harvest, and Andrea loved it. And she's a chef, she's a well-known chef, and so if she loved it, I figured, well, a few other people might like it as well. And so in between closing corporate contract sales at Bell, I was making hummus at home and packaging it and brought it to a few other stores, and yes. And so now I had these stores wanting to place orders, but I still didn't have a company or a product. So at that point, I decided to invest in this thing, and so I said, well, there's tons of hummus out there, and hummus is becoming such a bland and generic thing. I know my recipe's different, I know my recipe is great. I got a catchy name, I'll call it Yummus, but that still doesn't do enough. When you see that on the shelf, it looks like everything else, so how do I make it different? Well, I decided let's put it in a glass jar. Ernest at that time had just started, so I got some inspiration from there, and I said, well, one thing that I value in a company is sustainability, and I don't want all these deli containers ending up in the landfill, so let's put it in a glass jar. So I invested heavily in branding, and that ended up paying off really well, because that's what was the differentiator of my product compared to everything else. And it actually got me some good press. Cool Hunting, which is a international, I guess, lifestyle and current trends magazine, saw the product and said, hey, we love it, can we try some? I'm like, how do you love it without even trying any? But they love the packaging, they love the branding. So I sent it to them, and that got me a review, and they called it the best packaged hummus they've ever had. And so that kind of gave me the confidence to take it through the next step. So we're done the classic layer now. We've done the packaging, and we've done taken that leap, and that was two things that I feel like I've done differently. People usually don't start a business while having lunch and asking somebody if they want a sample of it, but we did. So now we're going into the next layer of our hummus, which is the Moroccan spice, and that's when I've tried to figure out, how am I going to spice things up? How am I going to really get my brand out there and get people recognizing my brand? Well, I spent all my money on packaging and hiring a designer, so I couldn't really advertise any other way. So I decided to do events. Let's do events, let's connect with people. And I started coming to things like this, actually. That's where I met Richard at Food Talks. When I was first starting hummus, jeez, I gotta get my own brand right. You guys are all gonna call it Yummus after tonight, promise me that, please. So we did that, and so what I did is I did a pop-up event. I did a pop-up cafe just down here in Chinatown, actually. It was called ShwayShway Café. I don't know if anybody heard of it through the internet, but decided to do a 3-day lunch and ticketed dinners, and through the network I built with Secret Suppers, I invited them and sold out on the ticketed dinners and invited some press, and that's where I met Paul, who used to write he's one of the speakers tonight, you'll hear him talk. He used to write for Vancity Buzz. And so Paul came, and other press came, and it really helped create that buzz for the brand. And after we did that, I invited also some guests from the Secret Supper. As well, I decided to partner with a couple of more established brands that have been still small business, still people who pay attention to me, but who had their own network and who can help me grow mine. So I partnered with Sugo Sauce and the now sadly defunct Sunday Morning Ice Cream, which was delicious. To be in that pop-up store, and so they brought their network and helped me build mine. I started doing some other events as well. I worked with a fellow named Julian Thomas, who does a monthly dinner and art party, and so I started doing the catering for that. And for the first few events, I started featuring Yummus, so it was a form of crude product placement. But I worked with what I had, and it built a network, and it built a brand, and it built the personal connections. Vancouver's a very small city, and the food community is a village within that. And I figured that those personal connections were what was going to get me anywhere. So differentiating on how I promoted it and how I generated that buzz and how I got that spice going finishes the Moroccan spice. And so now we get into the smoked. And the smoked is, where's Yummus going? And what is it that it's going to leave behind when it's done, and where do I want to take all this? And that journey started at the beginning of this year, actually. Started with this year when I decided to partner up with CYBF and get a mentor, not a grant, but a mentor. And happy to have Grace, who's my mentor from CYBF here tonight. Thank you, Grace. So we decided to do that, and that really helped me clarify why I'm doing what I'm doing and what I want to get out of it at the end of the day. I love food, but that's not what I was doing it for, and so I had to take a little break because I was doing too much. I was spreading my hummus too thin. Real thin. And so I took a little break, took about a month away, and lived on Bowen, and decided, why am I doing what I'm doing? And I came up, because I along those lines, I did a pop-up. I got involved in that business, so now I run that business too, and did late night art, and now I produced that event because Julian moved away. So I had all these things going on. Meanwhile, I still had my job at Bell, which I took another leap and left in November. But why was I doing what I'm doing? And what I found, the core theme and everything, was that I want to do something to support the people that support the values that I have. And I want to create products and create services for them to support their decisions. And so that was the other layer of it. And part of that is where I want to take Yummus is absolute transparency. So transparency in our processes, transparency on how we do things, our failures, and what we're trying to do to address them. So some of those things that we're going to work on in the next year is things like, our tahini right now is all the way from Lebanon. Well, that's not with our values, so let's get some Canadian sesame and let's make our own tahini. Right now our scale doesn't allow us to buy Canadian garbanzo, so we have to buy US, so let's pull that in closer to home. And really being transparent about that, hoping that the next person who's sitting at Harvest and having lunch and has an idea of starting their own business has somehow come across ours and seen that it's really not that hard to do and gets up and just does it. Thank you.